Anytime.
Hey, Ignacio.
All right, guys. Good afternoon, or I'm not sure where most of you guys are, but good afternoon. My name is David Chen. Today I will be your host for the SkyPoint in-home clinic call. Thank you, Stephen E, for the platform and the opportunity to come on here and kind of share with the agents we have here today, and hopefully some things will resonate with them and help them as they begin or continue the journey here at FFL. Before we get started, just to kind of tell you guys a little bit about myself. I've been with Family First Life for going on 2 years now. I came on board towards the end of 2020, right around December, and then I was able to be fortunate to help close to 350 families last year as my first year, doing insurance and helping families with no prior insurance background or experience or nothing like that at all. Came from the corporate setting, basically working for other companies and held numerous roles in sales, marketing positions, sales manager, director of sales, but nothing in terms of insurance. But we all kind of know that there's already a blueprint, a system in place here at FFL, and all we really need to do is just plug and play. And that's exactly what I did. Of course, with the guidance of Stephen, I just kind of followed the footsteps of what he told me to do, and some of the other top producers here at SkyPoint, whom we all have access to, right? Because we're one big family, and we're all here to, help and support each other. And that's hopefully what I'll be able to help you guys here with today as well. I've hosted this call a couple of times now. I would like to kind of maybe switch things up this time around, depending on number of participants and type of questions you guys might have. I'll just kind of run through like a quick scenario here, and then perhaps kind of let you guys hear, because a lot of times new agents want to hear what, I guess, some of us who've been here a little bit longer, how do we sound? What do we look like in the home, or how do we sound when we're down in the phones, right? So I'll kind of run through some just housekeeping stuff, kind of go down the bullet points and kind of highlight on some of the main things that you guys, if you guys are taking notes, you guys want to know. And then I'll kind of maybe just do some role play with some of you, so you guys can kind of see exactly how I go about things and how to overcome objections, how to set the table properly so they know exactly, what we're there for, how we're going to help them, basically facilitate and navigate through the process and all that, okay? And like I said, feel free to ask any questions you might have along the way. So let me pull this up real quick. All right, guys. So today we are talking about the in-home clinic, which is, again, how to go about your appointment when you're actually in the home, right? We're going to talk about two different types of scenarios. One is a face-to-face appointment while you're in the home with Mr. and Mrs. Client, again, preferably at their kitchen table, right? And then the other one is kind of like what some of you are probably doing as well, is the virtual appointments, whether that be directly over the phone or over Zoom, telesales, right? So those are the two main types that we'll hit on today. So as far as the in-home, there's really some key points I want to hit on with you guys, and I think everything starts off with number one, which is establishing credibility and having control right from the start when you're in the home. Okay, that's the most important thing. Number two is finding out their why, right? What was it that led them to fill out the request initially? We want to kind of hit on the why, because everybody has a why. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a reason why they filled it out. Someone that they're trying to protect, whether it be covering their final expenses so they don't leave that financial responsibility behind for their burial, funeral costs, medical bills, or outstanding debts they may have, or they want to protect an asset, for example, like a mortgage on a house, or they're wanting to leave some type of legacy behind for a family member, a spouse, or loved ones, whatever the case may be, right? So you want to hit on the emotions of that aspect there. Again, that's hitting on the why. Okay. And then the other thing that's very important is, having the mindset of the doctor-patient scenario type of relationship, Remember, guys, we are the doctor and they are the patient, right? So kind of like that situation where we go see our doctor, let's say whether it be for a physical exam, for a checkup, or whatever the case may be. When we go to the doctor's office, right, they're always busy, right? They're always busy, and most of the time they're never on time for your appointments. Why? Because they're busy, because they have a lot of patients that need to see. So that's the mindset and mentality you have to have as well when you're in the home. But most importantly, as you guys know, when we go see a doctor, and whatever our situation may be, and let's say we have an illness or something's bothering us, we want a doctor that's confident. We want a doctor that knows what he or she's talking about. We want a doctor that's going to tell us what we need to do, right? Hey, David, okay, you have this, you have that. So this is what I need you to do. I need you to, take this. I need you to take that and come back and check with me, in a couple, 2-3 weeks. We don't want a doctor that's going to be like, well, David, because you have this, I think you should probably get on this medication. I think you should probably do this. What do you think? Right? You don't want that type of doctor. None of us want that type of doctor. We want a doctor who knows what they're doing. We want a doctor to kind of show us the way and give us the answer so they can guide us through that process, right? And that's the same thing here with what we're doing. So keep that in mind. It's very, very important, right? And that all ties in with the whole mindset. And then lastly, it's important to set the table and let the client know exactly what it is that we're doing, kind of like what we talked about earlier, what things are going to take place and how we're going to actually facilitate through the process, and basically walking them through. And I'll hit on the details of that. And most importantly, with all those 4 main points I just talked about, the key is always going to come down to posture, right? Your posture, which is your confidence, your tonality, and then your word tracks that you use. And everything comes back to having proper structure, okay? Having proper structure is the most important thing as far as when it comes to the in-home, okay? All right, so let's talk about structure, right? Structure, we all kind of know you have to have some type of system or structure in place that's very, very defined, and everything's calculated, right? So the 4 main parts to a structure of an in-home presentation, number 1 is what I usually like to do is start off by asking very intentional questions, right? Again, that kind of relates back to what I was talking about earlier, which is finding out the why and hitting on their emotions, okay? Number 2, we all know that once we kind of get in the home, build a little bit of rapport, I don't get too overly friendly with them because we don't want to, cross that bridge there where now we become a friend of theirs, because we all kind of know that people don't buy insurance from friends. So we want to make sure we build some type of rapport, but not go so deep where they start, being our best friend. And next thing you know, they're inviting you to their, family barbecue, and they're not going to buy insurance, right? So, going through the assessment, which is again, going through the client profile sheet or the financial inventory, because everything on that financial inventory is going to basically help us determine what they could potentially be eligible for. So it's very important to ask all the questions from top to bottom, everything that's in that financial inventory, right? The more thorough we are, the more questions we ask, the more details we have on that client suitability sheet or financial inventory is going to help determine how to put them in the best position with the best care, with the best product. So keep that in mind, right? Make sure we go through that client suitability sheet, that financial inventory, very thorough, asking all the proper questions. And then of course, after we have that established, we're going to obviously present the options, right? Or also known as the quotes, right? We want to usually go with at least 2 or 3 options. Sometimes some people like to go top-down selling. I don't do that. I always show 3 options, right? I always show 3 options, kind of like the premium option, and then like the middle of the road option, and then like a very entry level type option, which is something that's going to be affordable. So I'll kind of hit on word tracks here in a little bit. But I always usually show 3 options, and I kind of just say, hey, out of these 3 options, Mr. and Mrs. Client, which one makes the most sense for you? Which one do you feel most comfortable with? Okay. And then I basically just let them talk and let them tell me which one they feel comfortable with. And of course, objections will come up, and I'll talk about how to handle those objections here a little bit later on. Okay. So again, just to kind of recap, number 1, asking very intentional questions in the very beginning, kind of again finding out their why and then hitting on their emotions. And number two, again, is go through that financial inventory and be very thorough, asking all the proper medical and questions and health questions, their financial situation and all that. And going into that, present the best options that makes the most sense for their exact situation. And then once we show the options or go over those options, in details and answer any questions they have, basically we're just going to ask them to pick an option, and then we're going to submit a request to see if we can actually get them to be approved. Okay. So again, key parts, the presentation, establish credibility right from the beginning, having control right from the start, finding out their why, keeping in mind the doctor-patient scenario relationship, and then making sure we set the table properly, letting them know exactly what we're there for, what the appointment is going to look like, how we're going to facilitate through the process. Okay. All right. Let's talk about establishing credibility. All right. How I usually establish credibility is when I get into the home, all right, and then we find a kitchen table, we sit down. Depending on the situation in the beginning, what I recommend new agents to do is kind of show your credentials, right? Especially if you're in the home, right? So I usually have my badge, and then I have my state license. I don't usually do the whole ID thing, but because my badge has my information as well. So I just usually show both of those. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So my name's David. I'm the underwriter that's been assigned to help you here today. So I'm required by the state to provide you my credentials. So as you can see, I'm licensed to the state of California or whatever state you're licensed in, to help you here today and go over your options for programs for your life insurance or for your mortgage protection or whatever the case may be, right? And I show my badge, I show my license so they can see exactly who I am. So my state license number is 123456. If you would like, with this number, you can go on the Department of Insurance website, plug that number in there, and you'll see a picture of me. You'll see how long I've been doing this, and I have no complaints filed against me, and I definitely don't intend on having my first complaint with you here today. Okay, so this kind of just relaxes them so they know who I am, my the legitimacy of this appointment, and again, just building credibility, right? Letting them feel comfortable. They know who it is that they're that's sitting in there across them from the kitchen table, so they feel comfortable. And then I'll kind of just briefly share what I like to call housekeeping stuff. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we'll just kind of get some housekeeping stuff out of the way. With the state regulated program, we help families with a few different things. We can help you with mortgage protection, which is covering your house or your mortgage in the event if something was to happen. Help you with traditional life insurance, whether it be to cover your funeral, burial expenses, or if you're just looking to leave some type of legacy behind for a significant other or loved ones, right? And then I'll kind of go over the credibility sheet, which is the carriers. So within the network, we have a list of carriers that are all A or A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. They've all been around a long time. Most of these companies are probably household names you recognize. The most important thing for you is that my job is to help you find, based on your situation, the best carrier that's going to be suited for you, and then ultimately get you to qualify. And if you are qualified, you're going to be in good hands, because most importantly for you and the family, the benefits will pay out, right? So that's kind of like my intro of establishing credibility, right? And then I go back to the whole finding out their why, asking clients what led them to fill it out and why did they submit the request. So usually what I like to ask is, kind of just tell me, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, what initially led you guys to kind of fill out the request and kind of wave your hands and say, hey, I'm looking for some help here. Do you currently have anything in place? Are you looking to get something in place? What was it that led you to fill out the request initially? And then I let them kind of just talk a little bit. The key thing to remember also, guys, is that during that first, 5 to 8 minutes, you don't want it to be too conversational where things kind of start to go array and go off track, and because you want to make sure you bring everything back to what it is that you're there for, right? Because we're on a time frame. These appointments should be somewhere between, depending on the type of lead it is or the situation, you want to be somewhere, no more than an hour to hour and a half. Some of the final expense stuff is pretty quick, pretty straightforward, half hour, 45 minutes, but you want to make sure you watch your time. You don't let the client just start talking and talking and talking. Next thing you know, they're telling you their whole life story, and we haven't even gotten into, financial inventory, or they don't even really know what you're there for, right? You also want to hit on the emotions, kind of like what we talked about earlier. So hey, what is it going to look like? God forbid if something happens and you don't wake up tomorrow. What is that going to look like for Mrs. Smith, right? Getting them to kind of see, try to paint a picture of what that's going to look like, and again, just hitting on their emotions, right? So to kind of get them in that moment, hey, this is why you filled it out. You know, I'm sure this has been on your mind. This is what it may look like, or what's it going to look like? Let them tell me. You know, is that going to put Mr. or Mrs. Smith in a tough financial situation? You know, whether it's mortgage, whether it's final expense, does she have the money? I'm sure you don't want her to come out of pocket, or any family members that go and do any GoFundMe's or barbecues or raise money, or ask for donations, right? So really hitting on that why. And then again, focusing on that doctor-patient type relationship. Remember, you are the doctor, they are the patient, they have a need, there's a void there, and then you have the solution, you have the answer. So you got to keep that in mind, and that's the mindset, and that's the approach that I always take when I go into the home, right? Okay. Any questions so far? Any questions so far there? All right, perfect. So as far as the appointment goes, right, we kind of know that there's always going to be objections that come up. But what I always remind agents is, if you set the table properly in the beginning, it's going to hopefully alleviate any objections, especially at the end. Because the last thing you want to do is go through the appointment 30, 45 minutes in, going through the financial inventory, showing the options, and then for them to tell you they need to think about it, right? Hey, David, all this looks good. These options are all great, but I need to think about it. Or, hey, I have to talk to, my wife, or I have to talk to my kids, or I need to consult with another family member, or I need to consult with my financial advisor. Or, we don't make any decisions on the spot, right? Things like that. These are all common objections you're going to hear, right? So how do we overcome these objections? I always start off by saying, if we set the table properly in the very beginning, and we set the proper expectations, hopefully that's going to alleviate these type of objections you might get towards the end of the when it comes time to kind of make a decision, right? Or at least pick an option, right? And then I'm going to also talk about how to overcome those objections here in a little bit, right? So those common objections are going to happen. I need to think about it. I need to talk to my spouse. I need to talk to my kids or other family members or my financial advisor. I don't usually do anything on the first appointment, whatever the case may be, right? Those are primarily going to be, it's going to be one of two or three of those options, objections that's going to come up, right? So kind of like what Stephen talked about earlier when we kind of did that little quick role play situation, how to properly handle objections. Okay, for me, I always remind agents is never be combative, right? You never want to come across like you're trying to argue with them. So I always acknowledge. I always first of all acknowledge, and then I'm going to proceed to ask them a question, and the question is going to be open-ended question, right? Which means that it's not going to allow them to have an opportunity to say yes or no, because if they answer no, then I pretty much dug myself a hole that I'm not going to be able to get out of, right? And the whole purpose of it is just to basically kind of keep the conversation going, right? It's not to argue with them. It's not to say whatever the case may be. I need to think about it. I need to speak to my, another family member, whatever the case may be, right? So remember, always acknowledge, never be combative, and always show genuine care, right? So the word track I like to use is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, coming from a caring position, I understand you need to think about it. What is it that you need to think about? Is it the coverage that's not making sense, meaning the options that we just went over, or is it not making financial sense? Is it the monthly premium that's not affordable? What is it that you need to think about? It's really only those one or two things that they need to think about, right? So again, I'm asking a question. I'm acknowledging the fact that they need to think about it. I'm not combating. I'm not trying to be combative about anything. And I'm going to ask a question and have them give me some type of response. And then I'll kind of just, continue the conversation that way, right? So if they say, David, I need to think about it. So usually what I say is perfect. Yeah, if I was you, I would want to think about it as well, right? So what is it that you need to think about? Is it the coverage, the options that's not making sense, or is it the actual monthly premium or the price that's not making sense? So I kind of get them to tell me, well, David, it's the price. Because I'll tell you right now, 99% of the time is price, right? So you want to make sure you're not showing options or something that's out of their budget or it doesn't make financial sense, right? You'll hear people say, hey, I always like to show, the highest option and then top down sale from there. I don't do that. I show 3 options. I kind of know that out of those 3 options, one of them has to make sense. And if I set it up properly, then one of those 3 should make sense. So if they say, hey, it's the price, okay, perfect. No worries. These are just initial recommendations and options that we believe fit your exact situation. So what is it that's not quite making sense? Like, this one is this much, this one is this much, and this one's that much. Was there a particular budget that you had in mind? What is it that you're comfortable with, right? Because as of right now, these are just options. We don't actually know if you're going to be approved. So my job is to kind of find the best option that's going to, make the most sense for you. And then from there, I let them kind of tell me, well, this one's for 150, this one's for 100, this one's for 75. I was thinking more along the lines of $50 a month. Okay, perfect, no worries. So I'll look for another option for them that's going to be more suited for, their budget situation. And I'm always going to be respectful of that, whether if they make $5,000 a month, or if they're on fixed income, Social Security, they make, $800 a month, whatever the case may be, right? The second option we kind of talked about earlier is, I need to talk to my spouse, I need to talk to my kids, or I need to talk to a financial advisor, or whatever the case may be. So first of all, if there's a spouse situation involved, those are kind of like what we call one-leggers. We want to try to avoid those type of appointments because, in the beginning, I'll be honest, I did my fair share of those, and I can still be able to overcome those objections. But if there's a spouse involved or there's another decision maker, I always want to ask, is there a Mrs. Smith? Is there another family member that needs to be in this appointment with us that's going to maybe make a decision, or a decision maker? I always ask that first. Because if there's another person, I want to be respectful of that, and I want to make sure that person's involved one way or another. And if it need be, I may just reschedule that appointment to come back another time where I can have both of them there, both of them are present. But again, I've done my fair shares. Sometimes I'm able to overcome those one-leggers type situations, but I'm always going to be respectful with the thought that, hey, there's another decision maker that needs to be involved in the process. Okay. Another one is I don't do anything on the first appointment, kind of like we talked about earlier. Perfect. And I kind of just like to tell a joke, right? Just kind of lighten the mood. Perfect. I usually don't kiss on the first date, but hey, we're not here to commit to anything. We're just going to look for an option that you could potentially qualify for. Just keeping it very, very light, right? Not making anything too serious. And then along the lines of that, I don't make any type of spontaneous decisions. Perfect. I usually don't like to jump into anything either too quickly. But again, I know this is important for you. We're just going to try to see what option makes the most sense for you, see what we can actually get you to qualify for it, right? So that's the approach that I have when it comes to handling objections. Again, number one, I always acknowledge. Number two, I always proceed to ask an open-ended question to kind of just keep the dialogue going. I'm not going to ask a question that's going to allow them to say no to something, because if they do say no, then I pretty much dug myself a hole that's going to be pretty difficult to get out of, right? And then remember to never be combative, right? And always show genuine care, okay? Any questions on that? Any questions on that? I just wanted to kind of go through that real quickly.
Can you give me an example of the open-ended questions that you ask? A few examples.
Of course, absolutely. So if it's a situation they're giving me some type of objection, so throw me an objection.
I don't want this.
Perfect. No worries. What is it that you don't want exactly?
I don't want the life insurance that you just quoted me.
Perfect. No worries. You don't want the life insurance, but you haven't actually even been approved yet. You mentioned to me that earlier that if something happened to you, you would not want your daughter to be in a difficult situation where she would have to come out of pocket to cover your funeral costs, correct?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So again, these are just options, Kadaya. We don't actually know what it is you're going to qualify for yet. My job is kind of go through your eligibility, and based on everything we discussed, these are the options that we believe will make the most sense for you. So out of these 3 options, which one makes the most sense? But most importantly, remember that we said we don't move forward unless we find something that makes financial sense. So out of these three options, which one fits within your budget? Which one do you feel most comfortable with?
I'm gonna have to think about it. Can I have a few days to think about it?
Perfect. Yeah. Actually, if I were in your position, I would want to think about it as well. But remember, just like you need to think about it, the insurance carrier also needs to think about whether or not they can approve you. Based on everything you're telling me, obviously you're young, beautiful, and healthy, but we don't actually know. So I'm sure you want to know that if you are actually even approved, correct?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So out of these three options, which one makes the most sense for you?
Okay, let's go for option one.
Perfect. So you see there, Kadai, what I did was I acknowledged everything you said. My tone always stayed the same. I never allowed you to, throw me off my tracks. I didn't let anything faze me. I agreed with you every single time. I'm on your side, right? I'm not going to be combative. I'm going to just continue the conversation. And that's all I did. Notice that I never raised my voice. I didn't get nervous. I just didn't let it faze me. Of course, you may not be able to do that in the beginning, but through repetition, through running so many appointments, you're going to always get better, right? And we're always trying to fine tune our craft. By no means am I done learning or growing or trying to get better, because I'm always trying to get better. But what I learned from just everything that I've done in the last 2 years is just really show genuine care and have a conversation, because you don't want to come across as you're actually trying to push something down their throat. You have to buy life insurance today, right? Because I'm never that type of person. I'm here to genuinely try to help you, right? And you hear this all the time, and what's called commission breath, right? What's commission breath? If someone can hear or sense that I'm just trying to force them into making a decision or forcing them to buy something because I'm just really trying to looking out for my own pocket, I'm not really looking out for you and your family's best interest. People can sense that. They can hear it in your voice. They can sense it in your body language, especially if you're sitting in the home, right? So I always just kind of very relaxed, very calm. Whatever objection they throw at me or they give me, I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to ask them a question and keep the dialogue going. And no matter what, I'm not going to allow them to faze me. And I'm going to eventually get to where we need to go, not where I want to go, where we need to go is let's find an option. Let's see if we can actually get you to qualify first.
Yeah, I noticed that you were hitting on that a lot.
Throw me another objection. I'll kind of give you another open-ended type question scenario.
Okay, I've got a policy already.
Perfect, no worries. So when did you put that in place, Kadai?
I've got it for about 5 years now.
Very good. Do you actually have the paperwork? I'm happy to take a look at it for you just to make sure everything's up to date. And if you're already in a good position and there's nothing else I can do to strengthen or improve your situation, totally fine. I'm still very blessed and honored that I got to meet you and welcoming me to your home. But let's take a look to make sure everything's up to date, because a lot of times family members who have something from a little while back, it may not actually be what they thought or remember it to be. So I'm happy to review it for you and take a look. And like I said, if you're already in a good position, perfect. But a lot of times what we're able to do is find something that either that's going to give you added value or, maybe help you save some money or just, help you add some additional coverage.
I appreciate your help, but my daughter holds my policies, and the person who did it, we trust him. He's been in the family for about 20 years now. So I believe I'm set.
Perfect. That sounds great. Yeah, a lot of times, most families are not in that type of situation, unfortunate situation. So it sounds like you have a really good thing going there, which I'm very happy for you for that. Do you recall what the coverage looks like or what the monthly premium is or was that you're paying?
I know how much I pay. I pay $68. Comes out of my bank every month.
Perfect. Very good. Do you remember what the coverage amount for that is?
I believe it was 30,000.
Perfect. So you kind of talked about earlier that you have this mortgage on the house, 30,000, depending on what it was initially set up for. I'm assuming some type of life insurance, right? It's only going to cover, a certain percentage of the house. you have a loan balance for, 250,000. So these options that we're looking at here is going to actually give you some additional peace of mind, knowing that if anything happened, the house is protected, the house is taken care of, so your kids wouldn't have to go through probate, right? And nobody wants to go through probate. And you mentioned that you're the only person on the loan and title. So by adding on additional coverage on top of that 30,000, which probably initially you probably set it up for to cover your final expenses. Were you looking to get buried?
That's right. Yep.
Perfect. So you have that's the vehicle set up just for that, which is perfect. And you mentioned you had it in place for a little while. It's through a good family, trusted friend. So that's totally awesome. So here today, again, we're going to look for something that's going to give you that peace of mind, making sure that your biggest value asset, which is your home, is going to be protected. So your kids don't have nothing to worry about.
Okay.
So obviously I just kind of made that up on the fly, depending on the situation, right? But again, this is just through trial and error, through experience. So no matter what it is that they have or don't have, I'm going to try to go about it in one or two ways. One is, okay, perfect. When did you put that in place? Do you kind of remember what that looks like? And again, coming from a caring position, I'm just trying to see what it is that they have in place, that they are actually in a good place. And first of all, that it is what they think it is, because a lot of times it's not. Believe me, I've seen so many such situations where they call their policy, oh, I have a $50,000 policy. And it ends up being a $5,000 policy. Trust me, I've seen it so many times, right?
Can I ask you one more?
Please.
What is it that you need to see when I've already got my policy and I've had it all these years and I've never had any trouble with it? What do you want to see about it?
Perfect. Yeah, I just want to make sure that you're not in a graded situation, a graded policy or a modified policy, which means that, because again, I believe you're young and healthy. A graded policy or modified policy simply means that either the monthly premium is not fixed, which means that it may continue to go up every few years, or God forbid something did happen to you, you may not get the full, you or your family may not get the full payout.
Well, that's what was said when I got it. It's a level premium and I get my full 30K. Well, I don't get it, but my daughter gets it. She gets the full 30K. It's not supposed to increase. It's never increased so far. So I think I'm set.
Perfect. So again, you kind of mentioned earlier that, you had this set up a few years back. I think initially when you set it up, it was to kind of make sure that no family members have to worry about your funeral expenses and maybe some medical bills, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. So again, we're here to kind of talk about the mortgage you have on the house, or maybe perhaps you're thinking about leaving some extra money behind for your kids. And that's what these options are going to do, is kind of give you that additional peace of mind, that additional insulation coverage, so your family are indeed well taken care of.
I do appreciate you, but I'm on Social Security, so I can't afford any more than what I've already got.
Got it. Perfect. I totally understand. Yeah, a lot of people we help, they're on fixed income, whether it be Social Security or just on a very set type of budget situation if they're disabled. I totally understand, but my job is to kind of look for options that we believe should make financial sense, that should fit within budget. And out of these three options, which one do you feel most comfortable with? Which one is going to kind of give you that peace of mind, knowing that if something did happen, you have that additional installation for your kids?
Okay, I see the power in you giving back what the person gives back, because it does make me listen. It does make me feel like I don't have to fight you. And I could see how that kind of opens, but it ends it at the same time, and you keep bringing it back to, let's get you something affordable that you can get. Okay.
That's always going to be my approach, honestly. Like I said, it's always from a caring position, and I always try to focus on the fact that, hey, we went over these options. Out of these options, something doesn't make sense. Again, just from experience, I'm never going to show anything that doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't do anybody any good, right? Because I'm genuinely there to try to understand their overall situation, and I'm going to find something that is going to make sense. But my job is to help them facilitate the process and help them make the right decision collectively together, right? So they can make the best educated decision for their family. And that's the mentality you have to have. That's the mindset I always have, is I'm there to help them make a very important decision for their family. Because the last thing that they're going to think about when their mom passes away or whatever the case may be, let's say it's a husband and wife or whatever the case may be, or whoever the beneficiary is going to be, my mom or my dad left me this, so everything's taken care of. Or my mom and dad only left me this because this wasn't only barely enough to cover their final expenses, right? That's the conversation you have to remember. That's the conversation I try to have with them. What is it that you're trying to leave behind? What type of legacy are you trying to leave behind for your loved ones? And then again, going back to the whole, hey, these are, just options. We don't actually know if you're going to be approved yet. So let's go ahead and submit a request and see what they tell us. Because if you are approved, Kadaya, in the next 7 to 10 days, they're going to actually send you all the paperwork in the mail. Once you receive it, I am going to touch base and follow up with you again. And then from there, you can ask any questions you may have. We're going to review everything. So you should make sure that everything, what we discussed here today is what it is. You have it all in writing directly from the insurance carrier. And then you do have that first 30 days to look it over. Should you want to make any adjustments or changes, you can always do so or make your final decision. But until you actually are approved, there's really nothing to think about. There's nothing that's set in stone, nothing's concrete yet. So let's start with the lowest option here first, because we believe this should make financial sense, and let's submit a request and see what they tell us. Okay.
Okay, so you guys can see if I'm approved without getting my bank details, because I'm not giving you my bank details. I don't know you.
Perfect. I totally understand. I want to make sure that you feel completely comfortable. Like I mentioned earlier in the beginning, you know who I am. You have my state license and all my contact information. You can actually go on the Department of Insurance website and verify who I am, how long I've been doing this. Like I mentioned, I've been doing this for quite some time. I have no complaints filed against me, and I certainly don't intend on, having my first complaint with you here today. And just to kind of let you know, right, as far as banking information, you're not really providing that to me. This is actually going to a secure portal for the insurance carrier to make a decision. Why do they need the banking, Kadaya? Is really for one or two. It's for a couple of reasons. One, they want to make sure that if you are approved, and only if you are approved, there's a valid bank account on file to make sure no one's trying to commit any type of bank fraud, insurance fraud, or there's no money laundering, right? Because they want to make sure that no one's trying to use someone else's bank account to actually fund the policy or to make your monthly premium. You mentioned that you're paying $68 a month. They're drawing it directly out of your bank. So it's the same situation here. So like I said, it's a secure portal, it's a state regulated program. And that's the process. That's the process that everyone has to go through.
That's great. Could you run that part again for me, please? The part we said, the bank account doesn't go to me, it goes to.
Yeah. So your banking information goes into a secure portal. It's for the insurance carrier to make sure that no one's trying to commit any type of bank fraud or insurance fraud. And of course, if you are approved, that will be the account that you will designate for the insurance carrier to draft your monthly premium. Kind of like the same situation you told me earlier. You have something with ABC company and it's $68 a month and you've been paying on that, and they auto debit that from your bank account, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's the same situation here. So again, don't worry about that. You're actually not paying anything today. You're not committing to anything. We just want to make sure we find something that makes financial sense. And then let's see if we can actually get you qualified first. So out of these three options, should we start with the lowest one here?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Any other questions? Ignacio, Alice, Tanner.
Hey.
What's up, Tanner?
What's up, David? How you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Hey, man. So from someone that's been in sales 25 years, director of sales, national sales trainer, dude, seriously, I've watched, man, hundreds of hours of FFL videos. Even though it's role playing, by far, dude, the best I've seen so far. So great job, seriously.
Oh man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. No, it's nothing special. There's no magic sauce. Just from trial and error.
No, it's not magic sauce, but I mean, someone that's trying to get into a new industry, and like for all of us here, I mean, obviously, we'd rather listen to something that's already more preset and good than people that are stuttering and even though trying to figure it out. So let's just appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Anything I can do to help, and hopefully some of this stuff resonates and with you guys, and you can kind of apply it and use it towards your your daily activities and when you're trying to help families.
Yeah, because Kadaya went off on you, man. She was going over and over with all the rebuttals.
Yeah, like I said, again, I've been doing this for a little while, and you guys are going to get there as well. But if you come, first of all, if you have the right mindset, objections are only objections if you allow it to be. That's why I always tell agents, new or experienced agents, right? It's only an objection if you allow it to be. And with objections, no matter if they throw me the whole kitchen sink, bring it on, bring it on. It doesn't matter, because I'm always going to acknowledge. I'm not going to be combative. I'm going to ask an open-ended question to keep the dialogue, keep the conversation going. And most importantly, I'm always, always, always going to be coming from a genuine caring position. And if you do that, and you do that properly, confidently, I don't think that we can't overcome any objection. Of course, you can't win them all, right? Because at the end of the day, kind of like what we've always talked about, 25% of the people that you sit with, they're buying the insurance no matter what. Why? Because they filled it out and they need it and they want it. The other 25% of the people you sit with, they're not going to buy, no matter if it's me, Steven, Ignacio, Kadaya, Andrew Taylor, Sean Mike. They're not buying. They have nothing else better to do. They just wanted someone to, shoot the breeze with. They're not buying insurance. The other 50% of the people you sit with, this is where your skill set comes in. This is where your ability to overcome objections, set the table properly, all that stuff. And fine-tuning your craft as you get better and better with each appointment, with each client that you help. That's where you're going to go from a good agent to an exceptional elite agent. It's those 50% of those people. 25% of people, no matter who, when, and what they're buying, 25% of people you sit with, no matter who, what, and when, they're not buying. The remaining 50% is where your skill set, experience, and your ability to facilitate and to find the proper solution to guide them to make a decision. That's where, you're going to see yourself go from here to here. Tanner, Brenda, any questions? Or Kadaya, any other questions?
None for me, thank you.
Okay, perfect. I mentioned earlier that I wanted to kind of maybe run through a scenario. I'm happy to do that. We have a few more minutes. So if somebody wants to kind of like, I don't want to use the word role play, but I do this a lot with new
I was
agents.
going to ask you that just now. I was going to ask if you can role play with me.
Sure.
Not you. Okay. All right. Don't hit me. I scratch.
So you want me to be the client? Is that what it is? Is that what I'm hearing?
Whatever you want to do, I'm up for it. I want to try it.
You tell me. Well, first of all, let me ask you this, Kadaya. I believe you're fairly new, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir. I'm more from a Medicare point of. Yeah, I've done final expenses. So the rebuttals I was giving you is not to be difficult. I'm literally playing out what I've experienced. So apart from being called a few names under the sun. But yeah, I want to learn. This is the most I've learned about rebuttals ever whilst I've been here in FFL, and I realized that it's just life. It's just issues that people have, trust issues, and I want to learn to help. I want to learn to come against these trust issues so that they can have this thing in place, because we all do need it.
You're absolutely right. And I think, first of all, I commend you for sharing that, because yeah, the biggest thing I think here is trust issues, right? Because whether you're in the home or if you're trying to do it over the phone, right? People want to know that they're not being sold. This person's not just here to sell me something, right? Two, how do we make sure that they do feel comfortable with us? How do we build that credibility and gain that trust is key, right? And I think if you, kind of like I mentioned earlier, if you build the credibility in the beginning, you establish that trust. Again, I usually have the license, I have my badge, and I'm able to just, present that and present it in a way that they do feel comfortable. And even if I'm getting some type of weird vibe, I will address it right away. Because before we even proceed or move forward, I want to make sure that they know exactly who I am. They feel 100% comfortable of who I am and what I'm there for and what we're going to try to accomplish today. Because the last thing we want to do is make it about you or me, right? Because then people are, in a rush to kind of go through this. Hey, I want to get the sale. I want to help them, all that good stuff. It's all great. But if you didn't establish trust or credibility from the jump and they're not comfortable with you, you kind of just wasted all that time doing all that really for nothing. Because guess what? They're going to give you an objection. David, this all looks great, but leave me your card. I'll call you in a couple of days. If I make a decision, you're going to be my guy. Trust me, I've heard that so many times, especially in the beginning. And guess what? They never call you back. All right. They never call you back. It's kind of like that whole thing. You have one chance to make the first impression. Because remember, these people don't know you. Like you said, trust factor, trust issues, right? Because there's so much scam out there, unfortunately, right? But if you present yourself properly, you are able to build credibility and establish that trust right from the jump. It's going to make everything that much easier. And I think just from knowing you today and talking to you, I don't think you have any problem doing that, to be honest with you.
Wait up now, we haven't started role playing when I freeze. I'd be like, where did she go?
Well, you let me know. I'm happy to run through scenarios with you. If you want to be the agent, I can be the lead or whatever the case may be. Whatever I can do to help.
Okay. So David, I'm calling you back in regards to the pink slip that you returned back to us for life insurance. You do recall filling that out, right?
What is this all about again?
Okay, so basically you filled out a pink slip that we sent to your home, and it's for life insurance final expense. You sent it back with your date of birth, the 10th, 6th, 1989, and I'm here to basically help you. What I'm going to do right now is basically just book an appointment with you where we can talk about what it is that you're looking for. What about on Tuesday? Do you have any time available on Tuesday between 9 and 12?
I'm actually kind of busy. It's kind of tough. I think I already got this taken care of a couple of months ago, actually. So I appreciate your call.
Perfect. I do understand the business because I'm telling you, this is a very busy schedule for me. Now, on that same day, I am actually pretty squeezed. So I can only book you in between that time. It's only going to take 10 minutes. I'll be able to get your information, tell you a bit more about the information you required, and then we can move forward from there. What time will suit you?
Kind of like I mentioned, I've already got this taken care of. So I think I'm fine. I appreciate you calling though.
Perfect. Well, most of our clients actually already have final expense or just a term life insurance. What I'm going to do is basically review what you already have to make sure that you have the right things in place to support your family when you do transition. And again, I'm sorry, what time would be better for you?
Let's stop there really quick, Adaya. So going back, it sounds like you want to do a phone script type of role play, which is fine.
Yes, I work from home.
So you're doing things telesales?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Are you trying to do one call closes? Are you trying to?
Yes, mainly.
Okay, so I can share with you, and I don't like to use the word script, but I can share with you kind of like a telesales conversation that through trial and error, through editing, through making some changes, it's worked pretty well. I'm happy to share that with you.
Yes.
I'm going to, let me put this in the chat. This is my cell phone number. If you guys can text me to that number, maybe perhaps with your email, I'm happy to share with you what I have. Because, and if you want to talk more offline, Kadaya or Ignacio, or anyone, I'm happy to help because I want to kind of keep, this in-home clinic training to what it is. And I'm happy to help each individual out, but within this recorded time frame, I just want to make sure we stick to what we need to kind of do here. But
Yeah.
yeah, let me just kind of go back to one thing here earlier. You mentioned, and again, there's no right or wrong, whatever works is fine. But when you kind of asked that question earlier, Kadaya, is the pink card that you received in the mail, you filled out and sent it back to us, all that was great. And then when you kind of said, do you remember filling that out? Right? For me, I don't ask that question. Why? Because if they say no, or if I say no, now you have an objection. Now you kind of have something you need to overcome. And it's fine. And if you're good about overcoming that, that's totally fine. But why I don't even ask that is to avoid it, right? Oh, I don't remember filling out. Oh, perfect. That, honestly, sometimes I don't remember what I had for breakfast, this morning, right? So again, this is regarding blah, 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 blah. So let me just quickly confirm and verify. This is Kadaya Ramsey. Your date of birth is 1/1/1955. Is that correct? Right. I go right back into it. Right. But I want to try to avoid that possible objection of I don't remember filling it out, because that is an objection. I don't remember filling it out. Okay. So with telesales, I'll tell you this real quick and then we'll kind of end with this, unless someone else has another question. With telesales, again, we're trying to do a one call close, right? If I have you on the phone. So Kadaya, my name is David. I'm getting back to you regarding whatever that request is. Okay, perfect. So before we get started, just to let you know, we are speaking on a recorded line. The state just requires that I provide you my personal information before we get started. Do me a favor, grab a pen and paper and let me know when you're ready.
I like that because you build credibility straight away.
Correct. Because I'm not even going to go into it, because all that stuff you were saying earlier was great. I get it, right? But you kind of made it about you. You kind of made it about you. But I want to make this about the person I'm talking to. I'm here to help you. And then with a one call code situation, your job right in the beginning is to establish, put your feet up firm on the ground, what we need to do. And I always start off with that, right? Just to let you know, we are speaking on a recorded line. Go ahead and grab a pen and paper because I'm required by the state to give you my personal information before we get started. Let me know when you're ready. Okay, I got it. Perfect. So my name is David. My last name is Chen, C-H-E-N. I'm licensed to the state of XYZ to go over this with you today. My state license ID number is 123456. Could you repeat that back to me?
Oh, you're asking me to repeat it back to you?
For example, why do I do this? Why do I do this? Because I want to make sure I'm not just talking to you. I mean, I'm trying to engage you. Oh, yes, I have David, Chen, 123456. I want to make sure you listen. I want to make sure you actually wrote it down. Right? Perfect. Got it. Awesome. So Kadaya, with that number, what you can do is go on the Department of Insurance website for the state of Ohio. I can actually send you a link as well. You can plug that number in there. You'll see an ugly picture of me. You'll see how long I've been doing this. I have no complaints filed against me. And I certainly don't intend on starting my first complaint with you today. So right there, that takes me a minute tops. And I've already established my credibility, right? Hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. I love the word state in there because when people hear state, they feel secure.
Correct. Correct. Right. We don't want to say we're a state employee, but we are licensed to the state of ABC XYZ because we are qualified. We are licensed to go through this with you. Right. Because a lot of times people think this might be a scam call, a sales call, telemarketing call, whatever the case may be. So I want to make sure, I hit that and I build that credibility and gain that trust right from the beginning.
I love it.
And then from there, then I'll go into it. So Kadaya, just to help me best understand your overall situation as your underwriter, I'm here to help you today. Right, my job is to kind of just go through a simple assessment with you, ask you some very basic health and medical questions because these programs are all non-medical, which doesn't require you to get a physical exam. We're not going to send a nurse to your home to draw blood or any type of urine. I just simply need to ask you some simple questions, a lot of health and medical questions that are just yeses or nos. And then from there, I will be able to pull up all the available options within the state of ABC and go over the recommendations that best suited for you and customize a plan and an option just for you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. So Kadaya, when you initially fill out the request, what was kind of going on in your mind? Who's going to be your beneficiary? Who's going to be the one that's going to take care of everything? God forbid if something happens to you tomorrow. Who's that person?
My oldest daughter,
Awesome. What is her name?
Samak.
Samak. That's a beautiful name. How young is Samak?
Well, she's 5 now.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Well, I'm not gonna
Just-
die until I'm 89. Something like that.
So just Samak. Do you have any other kids?
Yes, I've got 3 kids. I'd like them to split.
Awesome. Got it. Got it. What are the other 2 names?
Abaya,
Beautiful.
Elia.
Awesome. All beautiful names. So it sounds like what's important for you is that if something was to happen, you want to make sure all 3 of your kids are protected, taken care of, so that they're not going to be in any type of, financial difficulty or situation, correct?
That's right.
Awesome. So that's what I'm going to help you here with today. Okay. So the process is very simple. Like I mentioned earlier, what we're going to do is we're going to go through just some very basic questions, kind of help me get a better understanding of your overall picture, what your situation looks like. And then I'll be able to put all that information into our system. It's a secure portal, and it's going to provide you the recommendations, the best option that's suited just for you. And then from there, we're going to help each other pick an option. I'm going to help you pick an option that makes the most sense for you. And then we're going to submit a request to see when actually gets to be approved. Okay.
Okay.
So just so you understand, Kadaya, so this is the process, how things work. When we submit that request, the insurance carrier and the state's going to take a look at 3 things. Number 1, they need to make sure there's a valid state issued license or ID, verifying and confirming that you are Ms. Kadaya Ramsey and there's no identity theft or no one's trying to get this benefit under your name. Number 2 is your social. And again, the reason for the social is to make sure that there's no identity fraud. And because these are programs are all non-medical, they're just going to confirm your health and medications, which is connected to your social, which is part of the MIB, okay? The Medical Information Bureau. And then lastly, if you are approved, and only if you are approved, the last thing would be a valid bank account. And the valid bank account, again, is for 2 reasons. 1, they want to make sure there's no insurance fraud, there's no bank fraud, no money laundering going on, and no one's trying to use someone else's bank account to actually pay or fund the monthly premiums. That makes sense?
Mhm. Yes,
Any
sir.
questions?
No?
Shall
No.
we proceed?
Yes, please.
Okay. See what I did there, guys, is it's called setting the table.
Yes.
I laid out exactly what we're going to do, what the whole situation is going to look like. I told Kadaya that I'm going to facilitate her through that process. I get her to understand what's needed. It's not me asking, right? We always, say, hey, this is how the process. This is what the insurance carrier requires, right? And then I get her to understand the process. I get her to agree before I even proceed. And usually that takes, maybe a couple more minutes, right? Why do I do that? Because the last thing, again, I want to do is go into the conversation, go into the appointment 20, 30, 40 minutes in. I'm not giving you my social. Are you crazy?
Mhm.
Well, remember, Kadai, we said the social is for this. I'm not giving up my bank account. There's no way. Well, remember, Kadai, we said the banking information is for this and this. And remember, Kadai, your routing number and account number, it's actually on the bottom of your check. That gets tossed around sometimes, whether you're paying, the person that mows your yard, or if you're buying Girl Scout cookies, that number is floating around all the time. I'm not asking for a credit card number. It's just your banking information to make sure there's no bank fraud, there's no insurance fraud, and no money laundering going on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. So I hit on all of that because it's always going to be that, especially if you're doing telesales. They're always going to be hesitant to give you social and then hesitant to give you banking because they think that you're going to clean them out. Right. So I addressed that right away. I explained to them why it's needed and why it's required. And it's legally, that's what's required. Right. And I have links too, I have links that I just saved from Google. Hey, just let you know, I'm not making this up. If this is your cell phone, I can send you this link. You can kind of look it up. If you Google it, you'll see exactly whether you speak with me today, or if you speak with someone else next week or next month, the process is the same. I'm just here to help you, but there's guidelines and procedures that I have to follow. Otherwise, my job is in jeopardy. But I'm here to help you. But this is the process that we will go through, and everyone goes through. It's all the same. Okay. So again, I'm just explaining. I'm not combative. I'm not trying to pull something from underneath you. I'm explaining it to you, and it's valid. I'm going to explain it to you as professional as I can to make you understand and make you feel comfortable before we even proceed, right? So if you set the table properly in the beginning and you laid all that out and explain it to them and they understand it and they agree to it and they buy in on it, then I move into the appointment.
Because it's a done deal.
By then, you pretty much is a done deal, unless you really screw it up, right? Again, you want to make sure you ask all the right questions. You go through the financial inventory, as detailed as possible, and then with your upline's help, I'm assuming you go to Stephen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Stephen will tell you, hey, Kataya, put them in America Eco Premier. Hey, put them in Aetna, whatever, right? Whatever it is, right? But as long as you're thorough with the health and the medications that you ask, Stephen's gonna tell you exactly what to do from there. That's what he did for me in the beginning. But then once you do it over and over enough, you're going to pick up on things and you're going to get better. Oh yeah, I remember, this person last time was this and that. And, I kind of remember. So you're going to get better as you go. We always talk about the first 100 appointments because after the first 100 appointments, you have pretty much seen or come across just about every type of situation. There's always going to be those one-off situations, if you will, isolated incidences, but you're going to see pretty much the same meds. You're going to hear the similar health conditions, and you're going to, just get better. And you're going to know what to do. And ultimately, eventually, you're not going to really need Stephen anymore to help you with, what carrier to place them with, or what product to put them in. Any other questions? So yeah, I'll just kind of end with that. Like I mentioned, the most important thing is whether you're seeing someone in the home face to face, or if you're trying to do it over the phone or on Zoom. The biggest things is establishing credibility, right? Building that trust, asking the why question, hitting on the emotions, and getting them to remember why they filled it out and why this is important for them. That sense of urgency. Because remember, when we're doing it over the phone, you don't have as much grace. Right? They don't know you, they can't see you. It's your job to kind of make them feel comfortable, build that credibility, and then kind of hit on that sense of urgency. Because if I can't help you on the spot, one call closed, it's going to be difficult to get you back on the phone. That's just the nature of what telesales is, and it's part of it, and that's fine, right? And again, really be structured, know how to set the table, what the expectations are, explain to them properly, and then get them to agree and buy in on it before I even go into it. And always remember, come from a caring position to serve. No commission breath. Don't try to force something down their throat to try to sell them something, because then you're looking out for your pockets only. You're not really looking out for the families. Does that make sense?
yes, it does.
So feel free to text me your email, or if there's anything I could do to help you guys. I'm happy to do what I can to help you. I'm excited for all of you. I know that all of you guys are going to be great. The main thing is give yourself 90 days. How quickly can you get through the first 100 appointments? Having the proper mindset, having good structure with your schedule, and believe in yourself, and don't ever give up.
Thank you.
Thanks out there. Appreciate it, man.
No problem. Anything else, guys?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
All right, you guys go out there and have a great rest of your day. Like I said, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. Again, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, SkyPoint, for the opportunity to come on and to help with the in-home clinic today. We'll see you guys at the top, all right?
All right, see you. Look at that.
Bye. See
Bye-bye.
you.